No, not yet.
Like I said, who's going to be presenting this section?
Hear me now.
Yes.
Now we can hear you. There we go.
Paul, it's called the pushing the button thing.
I was going to say, push the button,
Yeah,
push the button.
push the
I was
button,
going to say
yeah.
it too.
Yeah, I saw Tony, so okay.
I was
So
thinking
everyone,
about-
I just got caught in the Zoom meeting. Oh gosh, here we go, you know, can't talk. So let's go back. Welcome to the webinar entitled Outbound Email Notifications. One thing about this is Paul and I get a lot of questions about emails, how they go out of Issuetrak, how they're configured, how can we change them? And we thought this would be a good topic for a deep dive today. So I'm going to try to take you a little bit through Issuetrak and talk about where those settings are, what they mean, and actually go through it all for you. So let's go ahead and do this. So the first thing here, of course, is me. We'll get past me, and it's a kind of a tour of the settings. Now, I'm going to start with the default email distribution list today, and this in two places. So I'm going to go to the CS training site that I have using here, and I'm going to administration, and we're going to go down to email notifications here. So email notifications. When we get into email notifications, you kind of get this little starting page that shows up. And it's a good time to just talk a little bit about standard user roles that are in the site. And I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way to the top, because really we talk about the submitter first. The submitter is the user or the caller submitting the issue. So when we define a role on the issue, we want to say the submitter is the person with the problem. They're the one who's either reporting the problem or the person who actually has the problem. They are the submitter. They have a primary role on the issue. The person who is the enterer a lot of times is exactly the same person as the submitter is. So I'm going to turn this down a little bit. That particular user, a lot of times it's the same person. Sometimes it's not, especially if you happen to be calling a call center and they're entering the issue on behalf of you. You call our support team, and let's say you talk to Dawn. Well, if Dawn is going to enter that issue for you, that means that she is going to be the enterer and you are going to be the caller. So you're the submitter, Dawn is the enterer in that case. If that issue then is going to be assigned to someone, and let's call it Julian. Julian is going to be, of course, one of our support team members. He happens to be the senior support team member. So if she's going to assign that issue to Julian instead of assigning it to herself, then Julian is going to be the assignee. So that's three different people, three different roles, but they're all members and have a role in receiving email in Issuetrak. Now, if you have a site that has next action enabled, and that is an optional item, in that particular case, you may also have a role that kind of mimics the assigned to, which is the next action role. It's kind of secondary assignment is what we look at. Then within the standard issue roles, there's a role called all task assignees. It's the group of all of the users who are assigned any task on the issue, completed or not. It allows those people to be involved in the email string that's going out about that issue so they can be notified of things going on. But remember, it's all the users. Group members would be included in that. So if you happen to have 4 tasks on that issue and they're assigned to 4 separate issues, or 4 separate groups, then it's all group members of those 4 groups are going to be included in that email. So be very careful with that one, because it can really get you into some trouble. So let's look then at the default distribution in Issuetrak. Number 1. The first thing to remember about email in Issuetrak is it is event-based. Event. What is an event? Submission. Submission of an issue is an event that means I have created an issue. On assign, I have changed the assignment or I have assigned the issue to someone. Next action is exactly the same thing. I have next actioned an issue, or I have changed the assignment or changed the next action from one person to another. I have added a note to an issue. I've closed an issue. And the final item over here is escalates the issue. So events drive email. Then who we're going to send those emails to is going to be the roles that you see under the display name. And it's the same roles that we talked about. Now I'm going to talk about default separate, so hold off on that one. But the idea then is that for any particular role, when this event occurs, send an email. Now you'll also notice this one has 2 check marks because it's not only including notification by email, it's also including notification by SMS message or text message. Now, when you're looking at that, you have to remember 2 things. Text message only works for users who have the SMS email address added to their user profile. So both pieces must be there. You have to have it set up here, and you have to have it set up in the user profile. Now, let's take a look at the edit on this just so you can see. You, as an administrator, have the right to make modifications and changes to this, and I have seen them all different types, where people will add or remove email. Just remember, since email is event-driven, there's a lot of email that does go out of Issuetrak, and a lot of times you can have more than one event occur very quickly. For example, people will add a note, close the issue, instead of closing the issue and adding the note at the same time. Well, if you close the issue, it's a closed issue with note, 1 email. If you do add note, then close, then it's add note, 1 event, and close, 1 event. 2 emails are going to be sent out. And if you happen to change the assignment, it's a possibility you can have an assignment email, a note email, and a close email all go out very quickly. So be very careful about that. So you want to use it, be efficient in how you use the product to prevent as much email going out. Just use the close event, change the assignment, add the note, close the issue. Done. Then at least you're only dealing with 1 event. That's what you're dealing with. Now, so pay attention. That's one of the things that you can teach your team. Now, I'm going to say that email in general works exactly as you see it. We're hopefully changing defaults down the road. Currently, when we ship it, email doesn't exactly work the way you see it here. There's a little feature that I'm going to show you a little later when I get into the email settings called Email to Initiator. What does the word initiator means? It means that I did initiate the note, I submitted the issue, I closed the issue. I am the initiator of the event. I, as the initiator of the event, for most of you, will not receive an email on anything I do because Paul and I have judiciously tried to reduce email and have removed that as being one of the settings so that if you initiate the event, you would not receive that email. You would just receive a visual notification that you've done what you needed to do. There's some thought behind adding it back in so that if you put email to initiator in, it works exactly like you see it in this list. There's nothing behind the scenes that says, no, don't look behind the curtain here. Hey, don't look behind the curtain because you know there's something's going on you can't see. You can't see what this hand's doing because it's off screen. So, but no, we bring it back here. So now if email to initiator is turned on, it's going to allow you to see the system just like you see it. So if you're the submitter and you submit the issue, you get a confirmation email going back. You as the submitter adds a note to the issue, you're going to confirmation email saying you just added a note. As a submitter, you close the issue, you get a confirmation email saying you close the issue. So email traffic increases because in most cases, I would never get any emails if email to initiator is not turned on. So be very careful, always understand how that setting is done in email settings because it can affect what you're reading here on this screen. Now, another thing I wanted to talk about is the final role at the bottom, the default role. The default role at the bottom is used for email distribution lists. So when we go through, and I'll show you an email distribution list a little bit later, but it's added, it's something like usually on a priority or an organization or an issue type so that I can send notifications whenever issues are created or events are updated related to that type of issue or that whatever. So we can set a default type. So here we would set up a default. Generally, what happens is if I'm working with email distribution list, generally note and close, submission and close. That's all I care about. Some people like submit, note, and close. But in general, that's all they need. Now, once you create the actual distribution list, I'll show you, you can do an edit there too, but this just puts a default in there for you to use. And of course, you can always change it any way you want. Now, another one you want to be careful of is that all task assignees. Now, I just mentioned a couple minutes ago about who's involved in that. You know, the users that are, all that group of users that are involved in the task manager. Well, we added this feature because really we got one request, and the big request on that was for people who are on the task list need to be kept involved, and really escalation wasn't big, it was note. Note was the big request that we got, where they wanted them to be involved in the notes on the issues so they could see the updates. They wanted to go ahead and be able to give them that. Recently, we have seen some notifications on escalations, especially where we're doing business rules, escalation rules that are set up based off substatuses, so that we're trying to track the tasks as they're being completed. And people wanted to escalate an issue based off a substatus that was sitting for too long. So in that case, yes, you may want to include escalation so that we can poke the bear a little bit and say, hey, look, you're the one holding up this process. This issue's still been in the substatus too long. You need to now move it forward. So there's good reason behind adding the escalation notification to the task, and there's good reasons for not doing it. So you got to kind of teach your users what to expect and see if it's a tool that they really want to use. Sometimes management would prefer it, but in practice it's ignored, especially escalation notifications. So make sure you teach appropriately and set it appropriate expectations about how it's going to work. I'm actually going to do an update on that one. Now, that's the basic issue email distribution list. Now, when you hit back here, you're also going to notice that there is going to be a task email distribution list. So when I click on task in this section, you'll see the default distribution list here. Now again, I'm going to kind of go back a little bit to the roles again. Some of the same roles exist here as exist on the main roles of the issue: submitter, enterer, assignee, next action. But then you get task assignee, the user assigned to the task currently being added, assigned, or completed. All task assignees, the group, again, of users. And then the task completer, the user who completes the task. So those are three additional roles that come into play when you're looking at email notifications. And when you look for the task distribution list, you're going to notice first off that this is very sparse, because email notification on task is by task. If you have 5 task assignments, it's 5 emails on one issue. So be very careful about this. That's why what we have tried to do, and what we mostly make our recommendation, is we only do task email notification on task available. It covers assigned and it covers task add both. So if you have a brand new task that's added to the issue, and that task is assigned and it's available, I just need to send out an available email that it's ready to be completed. If it's not available, then if you add the task and set it up, you're going to see it probably already on your dashboard, for example, or on your list from the My Issues that that task has been added. When it becomes available, the email will go out, and then of course it'll be on the task available list on the dashboard on the My Issues page. So keep it tight as possible would be my suggestion to keep your email notifications down. Now, I generally do not recommend submitter, assignee, next action, or enterer receiving any task emails. It's just going to clutter them up. For the most part, if they're not directly involved in the process, they don't need to know anything that's going on because it's an internal process. The only exception to that is if an assignee or a user is assigned to a task, or because they're assigned to a task, they have it as a role of being a task assignee, let that handle the notifications. Don't let anything get in the way. Again, a lot of email can go out of here, so be very careful about it. Okay. If nothing else today, pay attention to this section, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move down to the custom messages. I cannot tell you how many times Paul and I have come up on sites where people wanted to change or make modification to the outbound email notifications. And if you haven't done it or you haven't worked in here, then it's something that you really would like to get familiar with so you can customize or tweak those outbound emails a little bit more to make them more comfortable to you, make them more your own. So let's talk about the form. It's under custom messages under email notifications. You look at an event drop-down, which is a list of all of the emails that you can control. The tokens are tokens that are available when you select it. And I'm going to pick up add node here so you can see some tokens. These are the tokens list, and the token is nothing more than a field in an issue that can be added to an issue automatically. And then here at the bottom, the inserted message has a different set of tokens that you can use. Now, what we recommend you doing is you examine each one of these subject lines and determine how to modify them. We do not recommend making any changes in this area here, which is the subject line. That's the flag that's used by the incoming email module to determine which issue needs to be updated when it's replied to. Leave it alone. Feel free to add anything here or change anything. I don't care if you drop it all. That's just up to you. You can change the wording. You can add or remove tokens if you wish. It's just, if you want to go in and remove the organization, take it out by doing this. And boom, boom. Add it back by going back and finding the organization tag and click insert. And wherever your cursor was, it's going to come back and re-add that tag right back in. So you're not going to lose it. Now, down in the bottom in the message area is where the most work needs to be done. And even this one has been modified. I can tell you that now, because the add note normally has things like task in it, issue description. There's a lot of extra wording in here. Modify these as you need. We suggest 4: newest note, issue link, details, and all notes except newest. That's my suggestion. Now, some people will add additional signature at the bottom. So they'll put, thank you from the support team, thank you from customer service, whatever it happens to be. That's great. Modify it as you see fit. The thing to remember is the tokens list is the tokens list, and you cannot add any additional tokens. If you want a token, make a suggestion. The other thing to remember is you can't just type in a tag. It won't work. The other thing to remember is you can't just go in and add in HTML code here. It will not work. It'll just print the HTML code in the outbound email. And Paul is sitting there nodding his head. Yes, 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 done this all before. But go through each one of these, and there's a lot of events in here that you can do, but they're pretty well named. The one I will say that I would take a look at and can get confusing is caller and submit. Caller is when an incoming email has created an issue, or when a user has submitted issue on someone else's behalf. That's when that email is used. If you manually go in and submit an issue, you're using the submit email down here at the bottom, and they are a little bit different. So pay attention to them and then modify them as needed. Then you go through all the rest of them. Note, an assignment is probably the biggest one. Close is another biggest one. Make them look similar, make them look good to you. You may have to do some cut and paste, and I even suggest a lot of times before I even get started is to cut, paste the original, put it in Notepad, and save it in case you want to bring it back. Because once you hit this update button down here at the bottom, you save the current values to the table, and if you return it, it's going to return the last saved version. It's not going back to the beginning. So I always recommend just copy it off, put it to another place, and then come back. Now, the final thing that I wanted to cover today is underneath the email settings. And I'm going to get in here real quickly, system settings. And you go into system settings here and you'll find the outbound email settings. Not the final thing I want to see if I can talk about distribution list. But in email settings here, you're looking at your outbound email settings. Nope, not that one. Come on. It'll get there sometime today. Now, this is where the setup for the server is done. So your outbound, if you're on a cloud environment, don't touch it. We got it covered. If you're on a premise environment, you probably have your settings in here. It tells you can use encryption in here. It tells you what authentication method it means, and this is mostly for your premise customers. The email sender address is going to be the address that the issues are going to be associated. So when you send an email out from Issuetrak and you've just manually put in an issue, that's the email address that's going to show. CS training and CS training site is.
All right, that sounds like Mike's audio just cut out a little bit. Here, we'll alert him to that here.
And Paul, so while you're alerting Mike, it's also that highlighted field, the email sender address. You would want to monitor that as an incoming email box that you would monitor. Otherwise, use some type of no reply nomenclature up there.
That's right. It's not that you have to, but if you're using incoming email, you want to monitor that, because so when people do hit reply, that reply comes back and you actually process it as a note on the existing issue. If you're not using incoming email, then you want to make sure that the email address that's set as the sender name sets that expectation. So that's set to no reply or please do not reply at whatever domain. And a kind of an interesting thing here, in this site, you can see the username is API key. We're using Issuetrak's hosted email SendGrid implementation here. As a cloud-based customer, and I see that a lot of you guys are, we will put whatever from address on these emails you want. Works beautifully. Mike, are you back?
Yeah, I'm going to take back. Can you hear me okay now?
We got you now.
I'm
Welcome
sorry,
back.
my headset died. I could hear it beeping. I knew it was going to happen, and I was hoping to get through this. So if I die again, let me know. But the thing I want to finish up with, and it's a couple things in here, is remember I was talking about the email to initiator setting. And this is the setting right here that you see on this page. Right now, this is disabled. So that means that if you initiate an event, you're not going to receive a reply. When this is checked, that means you will receive the reply. The other thing is email and substatus change. The main users on the issue, the main roles users, can get our email automatically if we change substatus. Now, what that means is the people on the issue. You don't have any control over what it says. You don't have any control over when it goes out. It's an automatic thing, so there's no control on that. Now, there's kind of one more big feature that kind of gets hidden, and that's suppression of email notifications. In the settings here, we're allowing our agent users to check a box, and it's just a checkbox on an issue that says suppress email notification. A lot of times we recommend this whenever we're doing types of issues where we're just trying to log something. If I need to just log an item, I log it, no email goes out, it's done and finished, and I'm over with. And that works real well if you want to use that functionality. So you can set it for all users, which I normally don't recommend, and I'll use it for agent users, which I do recommend. So if you're going to use the feature, use it. You also have to make sure that that particular token is added to the custom screen too, because if you don't have it on the custom screen, you're not going to see the checkbox. Now, in relating to suppression of email notifications, I've run into this especially with a couple of new installs lately. And your user profiles, and I'm going to go to these users somewhere in this daggum thing. As you say, I've been doing this for 20 years and I still can't figure out where everybody is. In the user profiles, there is an ability for you to go in and update a user and suppress all email notification based off a user profile. It's down here at the bottom here, and it's a checkbox where every darn thing is listed. Paul, did I miss it again?
Yep. Come back up.
Suppress all emails. Right after the email settings, you check that box, and this user will never receive any email from Issuetrak. Every once in a while, we get a request like this where we have a particular management user, and that management user says, you know, I just rather log in. I don't want to be bothered with email. It's a great tool to use. Now, another thing to do, this is where I've done it on several brand new sessions, is that particular token or that particular setting also is in the group settings. So I can go in here and I can use the same suppress email settings here, and it'll suppress email for all members of that group. It's a great thing to do when you're doing setting up a new usage and you don't really want emails to go out. You just want to put some test issues in, and you'll suppress all the email. Just got to remember to uncheck it. I had that happen the other day on the setup. We put some new users in. We had suppressed the email. We forgot to uncheck it. They couldn't figure out why they couldn't get email. I remembered we had put them in a suppressed email group, and we had to delete the group, and we were off and running. So it can happen. But that is a good way of being able to suppress multiple users at one time and be able to control them very easy by adding or removing from the distribution list. Now, the final thing I'm going to talk about today is going to actually be not email. I'm going to go to the location records, and I'm going to look at an email distribution list. In the location record, you're going to find this little hyperlink at the bottom. You maintain distribution list. It's all over the site. You're talking about organizations, you're talking about departments, you're talking about locations, you're talking about priorities, you're talking about statuses. They're all over.
Issue types.
Issue types are in there. Subtypes have their own also. In addition to that, the asset records have it also. So you're looking into the module features too. So if you see that and you click on it, it's going to go ahead and give you the ability to add a user or a group to an email distribution list. It'll load the default setting that we talked about from the default email notifications. So it's going to be submit and close for me. And then I can go ahead and edit it. So all I have to do is go in and select a user. And I'll just do this test user here. Okay, this person now will receive an email notification when any issue is submitted. If it doesn't, come on. There it goes. So that user then is going to be added as an email if he has an email address, which he may not. If he doesn't have an email address, it's not going to work. So here, this particular user is going to be getting an email on submission and on close of all issues underneath this location Adams element. A lot of times it's useful for us to use that for the email distribution list. And just remember, they're all over the place. And to get rid of them, you just go in. Now, before I get rid of this one, let me go to the list all.
Hey, Mike,
Yeah,
while you were on there, I remember you working on one of my sites, and on an email distribution list, you added a group, but there weren't any green check marks. Why would you do that?
Access.
I knew that.
There's actually a capability. I'm going to go into system, and I'll explain it.
I knew the answer.
You sneaky little whatever and ever. Anyway, there is a feature in Issuetrak that allows access to an issue through an email distribution list. It's kind of a hidden feature within the site, and because it's not really extremely well documented. But if you go down here and you go to the Notes Default section and you check this box right here, it says allow members of email distribution list to add notes to issues. Well, if you're a member of an email distribution list, whether you receive email or not, you can see the issues that are related to that issue type, that location, that department, whatever it happens to be. You can go to the dashboard, you'll see them. If you go to my issues and you're definitely involved with them, you'll see them. You can do searches and find them. So searches and dashboard visibility is granted, but you must check this box. If you do not check the box, then the email distribution list will send you email if email is enabled. But in most cases, we're doing this for visibility. Project manager or a department manager wants to see all issues submitted by members of their department. A building manager wants to see all issues submitted underneath their locations. So that's a couple of things that you can do. Paul, you got it. Said you had a couple other questions here.
Yes, so I had, can you guys hear me okay? I had somebody who...
I hear you better than you heard me.
I had somebody who wanted to know if there was a way to just see all of the email that's going out. If you could take us to that view log and we'll demonstrate how to do that.
So what we're talking about here is under the system settings area. So you have to be a system administrator to get into this area. But if you go into system settings, email settings, you can view the outbound email log. And it's called view email log here. And I don't know if I've got any records in here or not, but as you can see, we're seeing the record of the emails that have gone out of Issuetrak. So all the emails will be in here for up to 7 days, and it self deletes. So once you get to the 8th day will be gone. So you can also view the body in here. So you can actually see the email and what's being sent out. And this is the structure of the emails that are going out. There's even a clickable link in it, so you could actually go to the issue if you wanted to. The other thing is the search component at the top, and this is where I've run into a lot of things. For example, if I wanted to go in and look at all the email related to a particular issue, then I put the issue number in here, and I can get all the email related to that. If I know who I'm sending it to, what the subject was, or what the mail date was, I can go in and view that information. Now, another thing that comes up is this little RC code column on the far right. And the RC code is a return code from the mail servers. It tells us whether we've successfully sent an email to someone. So if someone calls you and they tell you they didn't get that email, then what you can do is you can come in here and you can search for the email, say by date or by issue number. And if it's any number but a 0 in here, they may be true. They may not have got it because it's blocked by codes. And our support team can help you with the meaning of the codes. But if it's a 0, then you can say, look, the mail server processed that record right around 1:53 on the 6th. So boom, they've got a period of time. They can go back in and look in their own mail settings and see all the mail that was brought, that were processed in around that period of time. And it gives them a way of looking for that. Or you just do that with it. All right, what was the other question we had?
I answered one. It was a popular request already working its way through dev to add the location token onto a subject line.
Cool.
So one of the things that I've used a lot with customers on the email notifications, because you have the ability using that email distribution list, add this stakeholder on the location or the issue type. If you go to the email notifications, you can view that list of all of the ones that you've added through rules, if you will. Can you just show them?
You show them here in the list all section is where that is. And what it does, it gives you a restatement of the standard email distribution list at the top. And then like escalation rules. So I've got a agent on this escalation notification, tells you the name of the rule. If you come down here, here's one by issue type called user access. So we've got one here. Here's another one called facilities. So we want to make sure these users are notified. And you'll also be able to edit or modify it from here. You can delete the distribution list from here. So it's a good little management desktop, if you want to call it, about outbound email. What I've also found this useful for is when people get too many emails. They get a lot of emails and they don't pay attention to exactly what is being written on the email. You can actually go in here and look at usually the main part of the body of the email is saying you're receiving this email as a member of an email distribution list. And usually it's going to have copy in the subject line. Usually it's going to start with copy. That's a flag right there. That's an email distribution list. So why am I getting it? I'm a member of the Agent 3 access group, and you're receiving this as a member of that group. Well, it's because you've got user access, you're on the email distribution list for user access. So you can go in there and find it and see what's going on. Or I may want to go in and see which email distribution list the user access 3 group is on and why I'm getting some emails. Sometimes you get a lot of emails because you're on the distribution list, you're a role-based user, you have a task assignment on the issue. It's not unusual to get 4 or 5 emails on one issue. It happens to me because I do the PS scheduling right now with Paula being out on maternity leave. So what happens is I'll get, for every request that comes through, it's 5 emails automatically. Boom, boom, boom. The request and then the task added in there. So don't be afraid of deleting out emails. You can leave one. I always leave one is what I do just to get rid of them, because you really just need to know you need to go to that issue and do something. That's what I do. Any other comments any of you guys want to make, or any other questions that anybody need to ask? Because we're a little over time here.
I think we're good for email notifications. I don't see a whole lot in the chat or in the questions.
Cool.
I think we've beat it to death here. I think we've covered it, right? As we usually do in these deep dives, right?
Yeah, the deep dives, we try to get it in here.